welcome to the Lovegevity podcast. My name is Brittany James, and I know I'm a new voice and a new face to you, and I'm so excited to be here, and I'm so excited to be a part of the Lovegevity podcast. I really wanted to introduce myself to you and explain a little bit of my why and how Lovegevity found me and how Lovegevity has really allowed me to create a life that I love and has allowed me to really tap into my purpose and tap into my why. I'm so grateful to be a part of this podcast. I just want to tell you a little bit about who I am. I am a mother of two. I have a 6-year-old and a 4-year-old. I am also a wife. I am an event planner for a Fortune 50 company, as well as I have found such a love for creative design on weddings and events and really putting my own creative and authentic touch on every single event that I'm a part of. We all have a story, and I found it really important before we really get into creating a life that you love, for me to share my story with you. And so my story starts when I was in 3rd grade. In 3rd grade, I was diagnosed with ADD and ADHD. I was made to believe that I couldn't learn on my own. And I was forced to take a lot of medications, and I went through countless counseling sessions just because I was made to believe that I wasn't smart enough to do these things on my own. And a lot of kids made fun of me. They made fun of me because I was special. And so fast forward into high school, because this carried with me through elementary school and middle school. And in high school, I struggled a lot. And at that time in my life, my mom was diagnosed with MS, and my dad had 2 massive heart attacks. And following that was diagnosed with mental illness. And that really took a toll on me as a person. And so it was really hard for me to really focus on the things I needed to focus on. And let's just be honest, kids in high school can be really, really mean. And so my parents pulled me out and put me into homeschool. And I remember homeschool was probably one of the best things that happened to me, which I didn't realize until later on. And it really allowed me to focus on myself. It really allowed me to really create a strong work ethic, because while students were in school, I was working and I was learning a lot of these things that they didn't have a chance to learn. And I remember going into school, and I had a really amazing teacher. I saw her once a week, and she told me, Brittany, your grades are really good. Have you started thinking about college? And at the time, I remember thinking, wow, me going to college, that I'm this girl with this learning disability, and I've always felt like I wasn't smart enough. And now I have this opportunity to go to college. And I remember going home and being really, really excited about it. And I remember the response that I got was, college just isn't for you. You'll never graduate. And so at that moment, I realized that I was still living in this story that I'd lived in since I was in 3rd grade. That I wasn't good enough, that I wasn't smart enough, that the academic part of my life just wasn't for me. I was always just the girl that was good at sports. And so this then funneled into a lot of different areas of my life, and it really affected how I showed up. And this then brought me to what I like to call my downhill spiral. Because I had lived in this story for a lot of years in my life, I started to become this person, and I really started to get immersed in that story. And so this then led me to a career in dancing, not the type of dancing that you are ever proud to be a part of. That then led to the lifestyle that I was living, and resulted in a lot of drug abuse and a lot of addiction. And at this time in my life, I experienced a lot of loss. My family completely disowned me. My friends completely disowned me. My roommates changed the locks on me. I was sleeping in my car with a bag of strappy heels in the front seat and an envelope full of prescription medication. And I remember one day specifically that I looked in the mirror and I had no idea who I had turned into. I didn't even recognize myself. And I remember dropping my head into my hands and crying because I had no idea how to find myself again, because I had gone so deep into this story that I couldn't get out of it. And I remember I had a roommate prior to this specific period where I had this aha moment, and he had told me, if you can learn to conquer your mind, you can do anything. And at that moment, when I dropped my head into my hands, a little voice went in my head. If you can conquer your mind, you can do this. You can get your life back. You can do something bigger. And so at that moment, I made a decision. I made a decision to see what I was made of. And I went completely MIA, and I was able to turn my life around within a year's span. And I'm going to fast forward to the comeback. And so through that comeback, took a lot of consistency, dedication, determination, grit, perseverance. And it really took the I am not a victim mentality. I am not a victim. I had to continuously tell myself that I was not a victim and that I could control whatever that was that I wanted to do with my life. And I'm a huge Tony Robbins fan. And he says that you can go 10 years in your life and you can go through a transformation, but it's not that 10 years of a transformation. It's one moment. It's one moment. And so I am speeding the story up over about a 10-year span. And there was a point in my life where I went from living this life and walking away from a really bad point that I was in, and then started to build myself out of it. And still at that moment, I'm thinking to myself, I'm just going to be, I'm just going to have jobs. I'm going to have a job, and then I'm going to go to this job. And I never really thought of myself as somebody who would have a career. Again, still living in a little bit of this story. And ultimately, my husband and I ended up opening up a gym. And I'm so grateful for that gym. It really allowed me to tap into my purpose and allowed me to understand a lot of my why. And it allowed me to figure out what motivates people. And it allowed me to learn how to become a leader, not just for others, but for myself. How do you become a leader in your own life? And so after a period of time, we ended up closing the gym, which at the time really, really stung. And now I'm so grateful that happened, because that led me to meeting somebody that worked for this Fortune 50 company. And he kept knocking on my door about this position. And I kept saying, no, 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 no. And at the time, I was a stay-at-home mom. And I was struggling with trying to find a job that allowed me to pay for my children's childcare. And I know you moms know what this was, but it had to make sense. And so finally he asked me one last time, we're really getting ready to hire this. I would really love to hire you. And then I asked him, okay, tell me about the role, what does the salary look like? And he started to get into this, and everything that he was saying had aligned with the things that I really love to do. And I am so grateful for that day, because that's when I took the step into building a career. And so my first year was interesting. I went through a lot of struggles because I had never worked for a corporate company before. I had no idea what I was doing. And I had a series of unfortunate events with an individual at work. And from that, I got a really amazing leader. And I remember sitting in a one-on-one with him, and I was sharing an idea. And I quickly reverted and said, you know what? So-and-so's idea is better. And he said, do you really think that her idea is better? And I said, well, no, I think mine is. And then he stopped and he looked at me and he said, who told you you weren't good enough? And going back to that Tony Robbins theory of it's not the 10 years, it's the one moment in those 10 years that changes everything. And that was the moment for me that I realized that the story that I was telling myself was affecting every single thing in my life. And so from that moment forward, I changed the story. I started to look at myself different. I started to show up different. And I started to dive into, what is my purpose? What is my purpose? What was I meant to do? And so that started to allow me to ask myself a lot of questions, and it allowed me to get to know myself, which was way more powerful than I think I ever imagined. And so I only got this leader for a short period of time. And when he left, I went through another area in my life where I felt like everything was kind of falling. And again, and now I'm so grateful for that, because it allowed me to think to myself, what sets my soul on fire? What makes me feel most alive? How can I create a life I love? And again, I am an event planner for a Fortune 50 company. And at the time, it was just a job for me until we had a grand opening. And it was the first time that our marketing department gave me full range on the design. And so I went crazy with it. I got so creative. And I remember it was a Christmas event. And I knew Santa was going to be there. And I knew Santa had to have a really cool chair. And he couldn't have like a plastic chair, a fold-up plastic chair. Like, it had to be really cool. And I couldn't find one anywhere for the price that I wanted to pay. And so I've always been in this mindset of, if I cannot find it, I'll create it. And so as I'm building this Santa chair from a headboard footboard that I found at a flea market for $40, my husband does HVAC, which is my husband does heating and air. And he just happened to walk into a Home Depot that day. And there was a gentleman there that knew that he worked in the heat and air industry. And the gentleman approached my husband and said, hey, I have somebody who needs some help on her air conditioner. I'll give you her information. Can you go over and help her out? My husband happily saying, yes, absolutely. I remember he went to that appointment and he picked up the phone and he called me and he said, oh my gosh, I'm at this house. You're never going to believe where I am. And I said, where? And he said, it's this company called Lovegevity. And he said, the owner, the CEO, Cho Phillips, she's like really, really famous. And I'm like, what do you mean? And he said, she's written all these books around events. She's really, really talented, really amazing. You should really look her up. And at that moment, I'm paying attention to the things that light my soul on fire. And right before my husband went to her home, I started to tap into, I'm supposed to be doing events for a living. I'm supposed to be being creative. That's what I'm supposed to do. And so I believe that this was absolutely the way that the universe wanted this to happen. Was at this exact moment, I had realized that him being there was not an accident. And so I knew I needed to meet her. I needed to ask her, how does she do what she does? Tell me about your program. I want to know more about this. And so I ended up getting her card, and she doesn't know this. She's going to know this when she watches this, but I was a huge fangirl of hers. I was really nervous to meet her because just doing all of this research on her and really lurking her on Google, I was intimidated. And I was also very inspired because she's been able to do so many things, and she's given women just like myself and others the permission and the tools to chase their dreams and to create a life that they love. So I remember I sat down with her and, shared my story and asked her what she did. And I remember her telling me about how she works with New York Fashion Week and she does these extravagant weddings, and she's telling me all these things. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, it would be so cool to do that. But I'm not good enough. I don't have enough experience. And at that moment, I realized you're doing it again. You're telling yourself this story. The answer is always no if you don't ask. And so I remember sending her a message saying, I really feel very strong about being a part of your program and being a part of a lot of these internships that you give these opportunities to your students. I can't let go of the fact that I feel like I should be at New York Fashion Week. And so shortly after this message was when the internships opened. I remember I applied for New York Fashion Week. And not only did I get the role, but I got the role of being the right and left hand of the CEO of Style Fashion Week, Veronica Welch, which was mind-blowing to me that I had just happened to meet this amazing woman, come across an amazing program, and then I got the opportunity to go to New York. Never been to New York before in my life. And I got to see what happens behind the scenes and what does that look like? And so, never being to New York, I went, and it was one of the best experiences of my life. The events didn't necessarily go as planned, but I'm so grateful for that now because I learned so much while I was there. And not only the amount of things that I was able to learn, but the confidence it gave me in knowing in my gut, this is what I was meant to do. If it wasn't for Lovegevity, I wouldn't be here today. I wouldn't be doing this podcast. I wouldn't have had the experiences that I've had if it was not for this program. And so I'm a huge advocate. I am a product of the product, which is amazing to be able to share my journey with you and helping you figure out what you love to do. And so from that trip in New York, I was able to get an opportunity to do Benicia Runway Fashion Show with Richard Hallmark, who is Project Runway's one of their designers. And so I was able to do a lot of behind the scenes with another one of the designers that was in New York, some of the models that were there. So it was really cool that this event in New York was able to funnel me into another opportunity. And then from this, I was able to get a lead role in leading a lot of our interns with Lovegevity at a Kevin Lee wedding. If you're new to the wedding and event planning industry and you don't know who Kevin Lee is, he's literally a guru. He is so talented, so creative, and his events are so amazing. It's really not an event, it's a production. And so I was able to lead a team of interns from Lovegevity for a $2 million wedding that he did down in Laguna Beach. And I remember feeling so grateful to be there and the things I got to learn and the people I got to meet, as well as just the vibe from all of the interns. It's so positive. It's not like anything that you've ever seen in your life or experienced. And so from that event, one of our interns that was there was offered a job with Kevin Lee and is now his assistant, which is amazing. Her name is Sarah Flaxman. We did a spotlight on her a few months back. Go listen to her story. She is so inspiring and amazing. But it just goes to show what these opportunities can do for you. And so I felt like I just really wanted to share with you guys, number one, where I came from. I used to be a dancer. I never thought I could get out of that lifestyle. And now here I am, having all of these opportunities, creating these amazing events for a Fortune 50 company, being here leading this podcast and sharing my story with you. And so if you are out there and you are just starting your career, this is absolutely where you want to be in the wedding and event planning industry. It's an amazing opportunity. It's amazing knowledge. And I can tell you firsthand that everybody behind the scenes of what this company and what this program is, their why is to help connect you to your goals and to help give you that path. And so I am just so excited to be a part of this again. I can't say that enough, that I'm excited to help you create a life that you love, just as Lovegevity has given that to me. And so thank you so much for listening. I will talk to you guys so soon. If you love this podcast, please like it, please share it, give us a comment, let us know what you want to hear, let us know what you loved. We would appreciate it so, so much. And so I hope you guys have an amazing day and continue to create the life that you love, and I'll see you soon.